Before we proceed, viewer discretion is advised. The following content is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. What you're about to read is the word-forward federal courtroom testimony from the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press. The shock came suddenly and without preamble. Kid Rock entered the courtroom unannounced, alone, holding a folder that would shatter the hush of the music world like a sledgehammer. This wasn't about records or rivalries. This was about exposure. Years of hidden truths were bubbling to the surface. Rock didn't ask for permission, he demanded to speak. And what he revealed changed everything. The press, the court, and especially Diddy were caught off guard. But after that moment, the case transformed. Kid Rock wasn't there to testify, he came to reveal. And his statements on monitoring, complicity, and long-standing abuse patterns could be the final collapse of a legacy that believed it was untouchable. Federal courts are known for their order-measured speech, structured pacing, tight control. But on day 7 of Diddy's trial, all that cracked. It began with the creak of doors opening at 11:12 a.m. Heads turned, expecting court staff or a juror. Instead, a man in a black suit and shades appeared, carrying a gold-clipped folder, spine stiff, gait steady. Kid Rock, silent, purposeful, he walked directly to the front left bench, took a seat, and fixed his gaze on the judge. A ripple of whispers followed. Reporters scribbled. The bailiff paused. Prosecutors glanced at each other. But Diddy's reaction was the loudest. He froze mid-conversation, eyes locking onto Rock, lips compressing into a frown. A juror later said it felt like watching a tire slowly deflate. Kid Rock was never part of Diddy's inner circle. He didn't attend the parties, play the fame game, or follow the unspoken rules that silenced others. So, when he opened the heavy folder, clearly sealed, an official, the courtroom snapped to full attention. The judge, caught off guard but composed, asked if he was involved as a prosecution witness. "I've held on to this for years." Time someone looked at it, Rock responded. What followed wasn't chaos, it was an official pause. A sidebar was called. The judge ordered the folder passed to the clerk. It landed on her bench. For 12 tense minutes, she flipped page by page. When she looked up, her face had changed. "This will be admitted as corroborating evidence in relation to behavioral patterns," she said. The room didn't erupt in sound, but the mood shifted dramatically. Diddy noticed. This wasn't gossip. It was documentation. Organized, verified, cross-referenced. The evidence included metadata, signed statements from ex-bodyguards, house staff, and drivers. There were printed emails, travel logs, and incident reports from private security agencies linked to Diddy. The first item shown to jurors was a 2017 Miami estate report where a woman tried to leave a party but was stopped via radio. She doesn't leave until he says. The woman was Cassie. Then came a hotel chain email referencing privacy protocols for VIPs with prior red flags, names redacted but implications clear. These weren't ordinary events. The third document stunned the jury, an affidavit from a former audio technician who worked Diddy's 2016 tour. He detailed the basement room with surveillance screens showing private moments across multiple rooms. Everything was time-stamped and logged. Drives storing the footage were handled by one specific staffer, named in the file. He included camera model numbers, storage system specs, and update dates. Cassie's legal team nodded, they'd seen this coming. Diddy's lawyers flipped through binders, hunting for a procedural lifeline. But the damage was done. The evidence was in. The jury wasn't just hearing Cassie anymore, they were seeing her story unfold in undeniable detail. They weren't just hearing the truth, they were watching it unfold in sterile, undeniable detail. Kid Rock didn't move an inch, hands clasped, expression flat, no reaction. No comment, just silence. After a brief recess, court resumed. The judge leaned toward the microphone and addressed him directly. "Mr. Ritchie, if you're ready to make a statement, the court will allow it now." Kid Rock stood. No paper, no throat clearing, just words. "I'm not here for attention," he began. "I'm here because too many lies have been hidden behind platinum awards and billion-dollar grins." He explained how, over the years, he'd gotten late-night calls, anonymous emails, even whispered messages from frightened insiders who didn't dare speak publicly. At first, it all sounded too wild to believe until the stories started to repeat. Same phrasing, same fear, different sources, all circling the same target. "I've toured with both legends and monsters," he said, "and I let too much slide. But when I saw that clip of Cassie looking over her shoulder mid-interview, it hit me, fear like that is real." According to Rock, the folder came together, piece by piece over 5 years, bits from whistleblowers, one from a friend burdened by guilt. He confirmed he personally verified each document before turning it over to Cassie's team, promising he'd take the stand if needed. "And now I'm here," he said, Not as a hero, but because I'm sick of this business destroying people and calling it showbiz. He looked straight at Diddy. You never scared me. The courtroom held its breath. Jurors leaned in. When he sat down, the atmosphere changed for good. This wasn't just another testimony, it was a gut punch. A shift. Kid Rock had ignited something deeper. Prosecutors then referenced a new entry unlocked by his statement. Witness number 9, Cynthia M., a former private chef for Diddy's weekend estates in LA between 2016 and 2019. She didn't come to guest, she brought records, food orders, staff rosters, receipts, all cross-checking with nights Cassie claimed she was isolated, restrained, or used for special guest entertainment. When asked to describe the house atmosphere, Cynthia spoke with hesitation. There were strict rules. You couldn't look at Cassie unless she looked at you first. No speaking unless Mr. Combs addressed you. She recalled asking once if Cassie wanted avocado on her salad. He overheard. A different chef was brought in to finish the day. Cynthia was never allowed to speak to Cassie again. She also described a disturbing color code system used by the staff to track Cassie's mood. Green meant compliant. Yellow meant emotional or unwell. Red meant the night was off, but red almost never happened. Someone always got her ready before red, she said. The jury sat still, scribbling notes. Prosecutors showed digital logs. Cynthia had kept kitchen deliveries during private parties. In every entry, Cassie's name was blacked out, replaced by the term VIP. Cynthia also described seeing Cassie enter the kitchen at 1 a.m., crying, wrapped in a robe, and asking softly to use the landline. I can't find my phone, she whispered. I think he took it again. Cynthia didn't let her use it too risky. 2 weeks later, she was replaced. But she never forgot the look on Cassie's face. I quit, she said, because it stopped feeling like a job. It felt like being complicit. When Cynthia stepped down, prosecutors presented Exhibit 7-8B, timestamps and access records from surveillance systems across 3 Diddy-owned properties. The data was originally submitted anonymously, but had since been verified by a retired security consultant tied to Bad Boy Entertainment. One entry stood out, January 5th, 2018, Freak Room 2. Camera adjusted at 8:40 p.m. Visitor ID, Cassie Ventura. No exit recorded until 2:03 a.m. The jury leaned forward. Freak Room, a term long whispered about in online forums, vague podcast rumors, and cryptic artist interviews, now appeared in official evidence. Prosecutors explained it was shorthand for a series of modified guest rooms at Diddy's Miami and LA homes outfitted with dimmed lighting, wall-length mirrors, concealed cameras, and two-way glass. Recordings were said to be encrypted, stored off-site, and labeled under aliases to hide their contents. And it was Kid Rock who had exposed their existence. He'd handed over a USB drive, now part of the prosecution's arsenal. Weeks earlier, investigators had received a partial trove of directory files with folder names like Baker House, Sessions, Studio 19 Visits, and VIP 1 Raw. Some of the files were damaged or encrypted, but forensic audio experts managed to extract metadata, timestamps, location tags, and session logs that tied them directly to events outlined in Cassie's lawsuit. In one decrypted audio clip, played privately in chambers, a male voice confirmed by voice analysis as consistent with Diddy's recordings was heard saying, "She's not leaving. Get the phone and shut the mirror." The location referenced in the clip aligned with the January 5th surveillance entry. Diddy's legal team tried to dismiss the file as speculative, but the judge ruled the pattern of evidence substantial and admissible. That ruling changed everything. On screen, the jury was presented with a synchronized timeline of events in Cassie's testimony, now linked to files, guest check-ins, and time-stamped footage from Kid Rock's submitted drive. This wasn't testimony anymore. It was a system, and it was falling apart. The tension shifted sharply when the next witness took the stand, a former recording engineer from Bad Boy's flagship studio in New York. He requested anonymity and was referred to only as Dave. When questioned, he didn't hesitate. There was a rule: see nothing, hear nothing. If you noticed anything and said something, you were gone by the end of the week. Dave recalled one night in early 2019 when Cassie showed up unannounced, visibly shaken. She wasn't scheduled, but security walked her directly into a room labeled Green Room 2, the same code name used internally for a surveillance-heavy chamber in the building. An assistant asked if she should be sent home. Diddy's reply: "She'll leave when I say she's done." Dave said he'd secretly recorded that moment on his phone. Asked if he still had it, he nodded. "I emailed it to myself. Didn't trust the cloud." The room went still as prosecutors played the cleaned-up audio, the voice calm, commanding. Unmistakably, Diddy filled the courtroom. Juror number 4 turned away, eyes shut. Then came the prosecution's boldest move yet, they recalled. Kid Rock, this time not as a witness to facts but to motive. As a character witness. Why did he come forward? Because I had nothing to gain and everything to lose, Rock said. But when a system hides this much for this long, the only way to break it is to expose it. He said it wasn't about canceling one man. It's about freeing people from a culture that tells them, stay quiet or lose everything. He didn't look at Diddy. He looked at the lawyers, the press, the jury. I don't care what this cost me. Because what I've seen, it still keeps me up. He stepped down. No rebuttal came. Nothing could counter the image of Kid Rock walking off the stand unfazed, while Diddy sat like a man who built his empire on ice that was now beginning to thaw beneath him. By the time the 7th evidentiary segment began, the room wasn't reacting with shock anymore. They were quiet, absorbing the sheer scale. This wasn't about a celebrity scandal. It was about an entire machine. And Kid Rock had just shown. Then the gears. Prosecutors moved next to evidence pulled from a dissolved shell company, Shadow Track Entertainment, a phantom enterprise with no website, no releases, no footprint, just paperwork. Its only role, funneling payments to staff at Diddy's private gatherings. The ledgers listed party planners, caterers, even hired safety escorts, all bound by NDA letters issued through Shadow Track. Some contracts included chilling clauses like attendee silence shall be maintained under penalty of forfeiture, or presence within a state grounds constitutes consent to audio and visual surveillance. Kid Rock called back briefly for clarification, explained that he discovered Shadow Track's trail while reviewing tax forms sent to him anonymously by a former accountant who said they were fired for asking too many questions. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at, Rock said, holding up a scanned document. But the deeper I looked, the more I saw dozens of people paid to watch, but never speak. He pointed to one receipt, a $12,000 payment for equipment sanitation, and a separate $9,000 charge for session supervision. Both dated to nights Cassie described in her initial complaint as private, high-risk events. The jury began to fidget, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. To close the segment, the prosecution presented one final exhibit, an internal HR memo from Bad Boy Enterprises, secured through subpoena, advising all staff that continued. The final piece of internal HR policy introduced before recess was chilling in its clarity. Staff were instructed to avoid personal interactions with VIP guests, especially during what the company called red zone weekends. These were defined as high discretion periods when privacy was paramount and normal oversight was suspended. It was no longer just about Diddy, it was about the corporate system built around him. And with nothing more than a folder and a microphone, Kid Rock had pried it wide open. By the time the court broke for afternoon recess, the room felt different. Diddy's legal team looked like they were bailing water from a sinking ship. Their objections were thinning, their rebuttals more procedural than persuasive. The jury wasn't just watching, now they were engaged. Then, out of nowhere, came the witness no one expected. Sonia Lane, a former executive producer for an MTV special on Diddy from 2015. She had been silent for nearly 10 years, but said Kid Rock's testimony moved her to call the prosecution. That very morning, the judge allowed her to speak. Sonia recounted filming at one of Diddy's luxury New York properties. Cassie was scheduled for a brief cameo, but Sonia remembered her arriving pale, hollow-eyed, clearly not well. What stunned her most was Diddy's command that multiple crew members clear the set. He said he didn't want anyone interfering with the vibe, she testified. He then shut the doors, and they stayed shut for nearly 45 minutes. When asked, what happened when they reopened? Sonia locked eyes with the jury. Cassie came out crying. He came out smiling. That single line hit like a hammer. One juror dropped their pen. Another clenched their jaw. Kid Rock, still seated in the gallery, didn't move. He didn't have to. His presence was already etched across the proceedings. Diddy's attorney scrambled, requesting a delay to review this unexpected testimony, but the judge shut it down. This court has been more than patient. We proceed. By then, Diddy looked nothing like the man he once was. No swagger, no smirk, just hollow eyes and pressed lips. The icon who once lit up Super Bowl stages now stared into a future he couldn't recognize. Before closing the day, the judge granted Kid Rock one final statement, a rare allowance, but justified by his cooperation. He stood slowly, adjusted his blazer, and stepped to the front. When I first showed up, I figured people would write me off as some loudmouth rocker with a chip on his shoulder. Maybe I am, but what I saw, what I know, I couldn't carry it anymore, he began. A lot of people are gonna ask why I'm even in this, why I care. My answer, because we all should. When power is used to hurt people, it's everybody's business. He turned toward Cassie. That woman stayed silent because she thought nobody would believe her, because the man she was up against owned the room. He took a breath. Well, I'm here to say we believe you. I believe you, and I think a hell of a lot of people in this room do too. He sat back down. No applause. No whispers. Just a collective turn of heads, all eyes on Diddy. And for the first time, he didn't look arrogant. He looked afraid. The judge recessed the court. Outside, the headlines lit up like sirens. Inside, something irreversible had just happened. By sunrise, it was everywhere. Kid Rock exposes Diddy. Hollywood stunned, but this wasn't tabloid fodder. It was a paradigm shift. Hours after testimony ended, ripple effects reached Capitol Hill. Congressional voices began calling for a full review of NDA letters and unchecked power in the entertainment industry. On MSNBC, Senator Lisa Donnelly said, "This isn't about one artist. This is about a system that's thrived in darkness for too long." By noon, at least for a list, musicians released statements distancing themselves from Diddy. One longtime collaborator issued a carefully phrased post. "In light of recent developments, I've chosen to suspend all professional affiliations and re-examine past associations." Then came the financial hit. A major streaming platform issued a quiet but damning notice. Every Diddy-produced project was being pulled for review. A top-tier brand erased him from its website, commercials, and contract slate in one clean sweep. But the most haunting moment came from a forgotten clip. An old fan-recorded interview with Cassie, barely noticed at the time, asked what advice she'd give aspiring young women in music. Her answer now echoed with harrowing clarity. "Trust your gut," she said, voice fragile. "Don't let the glitz fool you. Not every opportunity is safe." Now, finally, the world was listening. That night, as Diddy left the courthouse surrounded by bodyguards and a blizzard of flashbulbs, he didn't speak. He didn't wave. He didn't lift his head. The empire he built wasn't collapsing. It was being dismantled. Slowly, methodically, by truth, by testimony, and by one man who dared to speak when silence was the safer choice.